My name is Robert Bernard. I'm the Executive Director for Nova Scotia Indigenous Tourism Enterprise Network. It's actually a Mi'kmaq word, NSITEN, which means I want you to understand.
So please describe your job as the Executive Director of NSITEN.
It's more than a job for me. It's life work. We call it nation work. Nation work means that you do things that will help to change the future for your people, for your children, for generations to come. I collect a paycheck every 2 weeks, but that's just a thing about doing the job. But for me, it's way more than the paycheck at the end of the day. It's about making a difference for my people through the tool of tourism. And with tourism, we have a strong connection with our culture and who we are and our history. So as the executive director, that's the kind of thing I do every day.
Please describe how the business strategies of NSITEN addresses sustainability.
That's kind of like sustainability in a business sense. But for us, we're trying to actually mix the two together in that answer. So I'll address the first part first. So we actually live a sustainable way just as Indigenous people by doing the things that we're doing to help continue to protect the environment and all of those elements that would be seen under what we call netukulimk, which is the concept of only taking what you need. That's always been there, but we've been living a life that's been farther and farther from that the last few hundred years because of colonial impacts. So if we don't reach that, then we're not actually as connected to the environment as we want to be or need to be, or that our culture states that we should be. So that route of sustainability for us as an organization means, how do we talk to our members to make sure that if they're doing any kind of projects, that they're not affecting the environment in a negative way? So that's a challenge, because even if you look at the province as a tourism organization across, sustainability is not practiced in the way that it should be. And I'll give you an example. Cape Breton Island, beautiful island. Tourists every year by the hundreds, thousands come. There is not a sustainable plan for tourism in the sense that, are they protecting the land, the waters from tourists that are coming, i.e. garbage that's left, right? The pollution factor from vehicles, all those elements. There is not a true sustainable plan for that. So going back a few years ago, we attended a national summit on Indigenous ways in which we can help to protect the planet, essentially through tourism. So there was a sustainability conference in Victoria, BC. When we went to that, and our co-chair came back from that, he said, Robert, we need to have a sustainable cultural tourism plan. And I'm like, where do we start? So essentially, we had to transfer all of that conversation that happened in English, and then we had to transfer it into our language and what that meant for our people. And that took a good year just to say, okay, what are we looking for, and how do we translate it to our people in the way that's easy to understand? And so we said we have to target things that we do know, which is two-eyed seeing, that protocol of netukulimk, which I talked about before, only taking what you need, and then applying that into everyday life for our people, which naturally would be things that things that you do on an everyday level, everything from garbage to vehicle use to all of those elements. From a tourism perspective, is like, how do you operate your tourism business on an everyday level to make sure that you're making the less impacts to the environment? See, if you go back hundreds of years ago, all of this wasn't there. So we were basically minimalist in the sense of our leaving very minimal carbon footprints. So even the way we hunted, even the way we lived, we hunted with the thought that you would use as much part of that animal as you could and share it with as much of the community and families as you could, so that you don't leave waste. That was the hunting, fishing part. The living part was that because we moved around in different places, essentially we didn't leave a whole bunch of crap when we left. We took everything with us. So the only impacts that were made were basically just impacts to the ground, which over a period of time would be, you know, easily recoverable by the land and the water. That was hundreds of years ago. Today, you see so much impact all around us. If you just look around, it's all kinds of impacts happening. So sustainability sometimes is more or less just a word that is so hard to reach, because it's almost thinking about, you know, it's only a matter of time before we overpopulate this world, and it's happening by the day around the world. So for us as an organization, we just try to remind people, like, what can you do to minimize impact in your home, in your community, in your workplace? And reminding people that because we're Indigenous, because we're Mi'kmaq, we've always had that sustainable way. How are you embracing who we are as a people to make sure that you're honoring that? So we went into our communities and our businesses, and we kind of came up with a sustainable tourism strategy around all those elements. So we still have yet to implement that. So it's one thing to think about it, and another thing to define it, another thing to think about the strategy of implementing it, and then it's the actual implementing it into the community, businesses, and that's kind of like where we're at right now. So
I guess what's your plan to show that to the world, to get people on board with what you're trying to plan?
it's an interesting thing when you talk about what we want to share, because our people have always been people that have shared stories through, this is how we've shared who we are, shared our, you know, life's journeys, and we are a oral people. So naturally, because we are an oral people, we share all of the most important things through story, through conversations, through your grandparents, to your parents, to children, you know. And this is why we have priorities in our culture like 7-generational model. Like we don't think about just ourselves and our children, we think about 7 generations in front of us. So if you're making, let's say, the sustainability model, we don't worry about the environment right now. We do, but we worry for the ones that are coming way, you know, ahead of us. And if we don't do something now, then they won't see the beauty of nature and the you know, ability of drinking water that we do today. I mean, even that's getting lost, right? So like, if we don't protect those kind of things in a 7-generational kind of model, then we are not doing our people and our culture and our who we are justice. So in terms of showing all of those, you know, very important elements of connecting with, you know, not just culture, but environment, about, you know, like things that are sacred, like your word. Like we don't need to put that on paper. If we say something, this is the old way, right? If you say something, then you're saying it from here, and your spirit is saying it. So we're taught that, you know, if you're speaking from your heart, they say, we speak from our spirit. You should not be saying something that's not true to your spirit, because you're breaking your spirit if you're telling a lie. Like for us, it's like that's how deep it gets a long time ago. So we're trying to share those stories, just like before you were saying how people would love to hear, you know, like all the historical connections of our people, you know, of what happened in the past, and the, you know, the connection to the French people and the words and the, you know, the French cow and all, you know, all these elements are stories that are just, that haven't been shared, you know, locally, never mind around the world, right?
Igo igande ha igo gwandu dana he he igo igande he gwandu